all that led up to this as
Well, explain it,
well,
since we're here. I mean,
you sir?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, my brother was a senior in high school. We lived on Shorewood Drive, and his friends would be over, like Jack Evans, who was a great basketball player, went on. I think he graduated even at 54 or 55, went played at OC for Mr. Pesco, so on and so forth. There were other athletes, Jack and Jim Lindbergh, Roy Kreitzer, Bobby Dunn, and there was a backboard and a hoop in our. We had 2 yards, but the upper yard, and packed dirt. And we had a little house that we rented out, and I'd sit on the steps and I'd watch these guys play. Okay, and I kind of had a inclination for sports anyway, but I'm like a little kid in the candy store. Okay, and I remember it was my brother and Don and Jack Evans that they taught me how to dribble and they taught me how to shoot. And the thing was you always dribble on your fingertips, and they said. Both of them, and particularly Jack, that you shoot the ball with your fingertips. Okay? Well, I took that in a literal sense. So when I shot, I held the ball on my fingertips. I never, they said don't shoot the ball with the palm of your hand. Well, like I said, I took this literal about shooting on your fingertips. And so I had it wasn't the old two-handed type set shot, but it was because I held it like at 8 o'clock and let's say 2 and shot, and it was a set shot. Sometimes it could be considered two-handed, the other one and a half. Okay. So anyway, it's February 19th, 1954, and my brother takes me to my first basketball game. And it was, I don't remember who Bremerton was playing, but if that gym were there, I could take you into that gym, into the section where we sat, and come within 1 row of where we were. And so I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden, the West comes out, and they start the fight song. And one thing about the fight song that it's a neat fight song, Fight for the Blue and Gold, and it was the Anchors Away. But there was a instrumental prelude to that, and it went da 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 da, and the crashing of the cymbals and the bass drum, and then Fight for the, and this happens, and that gym just exploded, and people were cheering, and the cheerleaders, and so on and so forth. So I'm just totally entranced, and I knew that's something I wanted to do. Okay, well, and then afterwards, here I am, 7 years old, and there's confetti from the cheerleaders, the pom-poms, and I'm picking some of that off the floor in my pocket. And then we're at the north end of the gym, and my brother's showing me how to cut somebody off at the baseline. And you put one foot over the baseline, the other, and you force them back the other way. About that time, Mr. Wilson himself of the locker room. And I was introduced to him. And then my brother told me he wants to be a basketball player. And Mr. Wilson told me, he said something, but then he said, always remember, shoot for 2 and follow through. And I went home that night, and I put that cheerleader stuff under my pillow, and went to bed, and went to sleep. And like Martin Luther King said, I had a dream, and that was it. And I had a mental picture for the next 8 years. I was going to play basketball at West. And I used to drive my friends crazy. Well, first off, I used to drive them, like, beginning when I was in junior high, because I was always singing the fight song or humming the fight song. And they'd get so mad at me. And I remember one time Eddie and I were together, that used to drive him nuts. I knew it did, but I enjoyed doing it too. And I go da 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 da. And Eddie turned to me one time and he said, "Shut the heck up, Folger," and he hit me in the arm. And that happened more than once. But I just had this mental picture that I was going to play basketball at West High School. And for two reasons. Because of what I experienced, and I like sports, and I love basketball. And the other thing about, I played basketball and baseball, but the thing about basketball was, I was a quiet kid, and somewhat introverted until I got to know someone, so to speak. But playing basketball, I felt that people would get to know who I was. And in playing basketball, you're in a nice warm gym, you have a uniform, and they can see your face. So that I had this dream, and
I understand. So you were said that, you know, with Smith coming in, it was a new start. Do you think that attitude was kind of in other players' minds? Because there's difference, as I read through the press clippings
right.
and the stories, even the newspaper is saying it's kind of like, it wasn't out of control, but it looks like you guys were playing as players, kind of mentally trying some things that you may not have been able to try with Wills. You know, so I mean, so what was this more? So being a different coach, you know, different styles and so on. Because I get the opinion.
Go ahead.
I get the opinion that Wills was particular.
He was particular, and particular, methodical, more of a slow down type. I don't, but I think too, you know, the game was kind of evolving and changing in the, let's just say, in the early 60s to, you know, a little more faster paced, although even in playing at that time, it was kind of like it was methodical. It was somewhat, you know, a slow down. But if you had the opportunity to run, you know, you ran. It might have been with Mr. Wills that it was still, you know, more of that methodical slow down. But I look at who played like in 58, 59. There were some great athletes on those teams,
and they'll just put up some big scores.
And they put up some big scores, and they ran. So I think maybe to answer your question, and maybe what was written, was just the fact that the seniors in 62, 63 had been juniors a year before,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but that the team before that was kind of primarily seniors.
Mm-hmm.
And so the in 62, 63, it's kind of like, you know, it's a seniors team, so to speak.
Right.
Where was I going with this? Plus the fact that you have a new coach.
Right.
So combine those two things together, and
it's going to be a different team.
It's going to be a different team, and you know, people that talked in the community or people that wrote, you know, the sports writers and stuff. Because of that, you know, they might have raised. I could see them raising that question.
Watch your foot. They don't really raise the questions. I mean, having written stories before, I see things based upon certain words being used and the way the words are using, and it's almost like it's a mild surprise. You know, this isn't the typical West team.
Right.
I mean, I read several of the previous articles when Coach Wills was there, and the sports writer goes, well, here we go with another boring West season. They're going to do well, but it's going to be slow and it's going to be boring. You know, one of the guys actually kind of wrote that. I mean,
right.
And you're kind of seeing like, whoa, this is not your typical West team.
And that's a good point. I had heard a few times, a couple of years prior to the changing of the coaches and stuff, that some people had felt that the game had passed Mr. Wills. That from more than one person. I don't know that I believed it or felt it or thought myself, but you know, again, it's kind of a transition.
Which that's an interesting statement because I've gone back and read before. He brought Bremerton into the modern age when he took over in '36. Everything was a set shot. I mean, he was, you know, he taught the West players how to, or Bremerton, you know, how to shoot with the one hand. So it's interesting that people would then, you know, and I thought so too until I saw the scores off the late '50s teams, and those guys were racking up the points. So
one thing too during that period of time was Jack Dunn, Mr. Dunn, taught at Kuntz.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a basketball coach, and he was he had the same philosophy and teaching skills that Mr. Wills did. So when you were in junior high, you had the fundamentals: shooting, dribbling, passing, and then by the time you got to high school, then Mr. Wills just went from that. And then, so in 1958, when Bremerton became East and West, they eliminated the junior high basketball program because, if I'm not mistaken, Kuntz was 3 years and Bremerton was 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when they combined, then Kuntz went to 2 years, 7th and 8th grade, and West was 4 years, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. So the freshman team played in the
middle school or
junior high league. So we didn't have a team at Kuntz for 2 years. But
you did when you were at Kuntz?
When I was at Kuntz, because that was 58, 59.
That must have been
that
disappointing.
Was disappointing because I knew Mr. Dunn through his brother, through my brother, and I knew at that time what's the word I wanted, you know, stepping stone and stuff. So I remember distinctly that, and I think to myself then, and thinking back on it after all of these years, I kind of got gypped when it came to that. But I think that was one thing that made that helped Mr. Wills be successful and be a good coach, and is because they came from work from Mr. Dunn and
right.
fundamentals.
So what were Coach Smith's practices like?
Pardon me?
What were Coach Smith's practices like?
Coach Smith?
Yeah.
I'll tell kind of a funny story. This goes back to the time when he walked in the gym, so on and so forth. I think it was then. It could have been one of the earlier practices, but I'm almost sure it was when we were at Kuntz and when he walked in. And he was teaching us a warm-up drill, okay? And And prior to that, the only warm-up drills, you came on the court, and one line shot lay-ins from the right, and the other line rebounded, so on and so forth. Well, anyway, he was going to teach us this warm-up drill. And I can't remember what it was like. He'd probably gotten it out of a book or something. And we have intelligent guys, intelligent players. And, something here and something there, and then you go there, and so on and so forth. And after about 10 minutes, we never got it down. We weren't even close to getting it down. And really, it's kind of one of those situations where, hey, we don't get it, we're not going to get it, and you just start laughing. And Mr. Smith realized that, and that was scrapped. And from that point on, the warm-ups and stuff were, you come out on the court, and there's two lines. There's the lay-in line and then the rebounding line and stuff. So.
Well, you guys were in unique situations. You played in 62 and 63 in two leagues at the same time. You played in the Capital League and you played in the Olympic League.
Yeah. In 1959, West became a member of the Capital League. And it was a year, in 58, I think East was in the Capital League as well for 1 year, and then they stayed in the Olympic League. So, a unique situation. We were affiliated with the Capital League, and there were 5 schools. There was West, Wilson,
Stadium,
Mount Tahoma,
Stadium,
and
Lincoln.
Okay, that year. So with 5 teams and and you played each team twice. So you played 8 Capital League games. We were in that league. However, to qualify for the district tournament, we played the Olympic League teams, and there were 7 teams. So there's 12 games, 12 and 8, and you played the 20 games. So we weren't really a member or affiliated with the Olympic League, only the fact that the games against the Olympic League counted for our eligibility. Now the following year...
so you guys saw yourself actually playing in the Capital League with the Olympic Leagues kind of being extra to get to state.
Yes. And then same the following year. However, Bremerton Prep became a member of the Capital League. So now there's 6 teams. So you played each team twice. There's 10 games. Well, and you can only play 20. So in 63, 64, we didn't play North Kitsap that year.
Okay.
And so they had some formula that to determine how we fit in the Olympic League that year to qualify. As it turned out, we were 7-3, and I think we were we ended up being I'm talking about 63, 64. We ended up being the 5 seed in an 18 district tournament. In 62, 63, we were 2-8 in the Capital League, and we were 11-1 against Olympic League teams, and we won a coin flip with East for the number 1 seed. We got that, and we played, and there was West and Port Angeles. We played the first night, and East and Sumner played in the other game. There were 4 teams in the district that year and 8 teams the following year.
Okay, so the season opens. Mount Tahoma comes up and plays you guys at home.
Yes.
Do you remember that game? You didn't play in that game.
I didn't play in it.
No.
I remember after school that day what happened. I went with Bud Braun, and he had his dad's old pickup, and we went to a mill in Port Orchard and got some shakes and stuff, and took home. Did we win? I don't win.
Well, that was, you guys were doing really well. You
Yeah.
led up to the. I mean, you won the first half. You were ahead 31 to 23 at halftime. The third quarter, both teams played even. Then all of a sudden, you guys went dry in the fourth quarter
okay.
at the free throw line, and that's what I mean, basically, you guys couldn't make
Free throw.
diddly,
Oh,
if that's the word to use. And Mount the Home came behind and won the game. You guys lost 53 to 50. Your season opener.
Oh, two things I remember about that was I think it was December 1st that we played. It could have been December 2nd. And the other thing was suiting up for the first time as a varsity player and standing in line, and it was my turn to run out on the.
And to hear the.
Yes, and the pageantry of all of that.
Goosebumps. I mean, you know.
Yeah, it was pure apprehension, excitement, nervousness, the whole.
So after that game, you guys went to Port Angeles, and actually didn't beat up on them, but you won the game 49 to 38. You remember going up there for that first win?
I remember going up there because we got out of school at 1:30, because that used to be a long drive up to Port Angeles.
It still is.
So, it used to be even longer. But we got out of school early, and because we had to get there in time for the JV game. But because of the fact of getting out of school early and the bus ride, we stopped at a restaurant and had a meal and stuff. So that was fun.
So in both the opening two games, it looks like the man of the hour is Les Dix. He started the season pretty well, didn't he?
Yes. I knew him earlier, years before that, but what's it going to say? He was a spiritual reader. If that's
no, it makes sense.
I think that term's still used. Yeah.
I've been a basketball coach. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Long arms, good rebounder. We used to nickname him the Stork.
Yeah, actually, in that Port Angeles game, he had 18 rebounds in that game.
That doesn't surprise me.
So,
yeah.
I mean, he only had 9 points, but it said that his rebounding, he kind of got the fast break going between him and Leslie and Tamarius. In a sense, he would rebound him and get him down the floor, and those two guys would finish it up. So
his dad was a Pee Wee baseball coach of mine as well. That's it.
Okay. So third game, actually, looking at here, this was the first game you played as a varsity player. This was against North Kitsap.
I remember that game well.
And why is that, Lonnie?
Because that was the first game I played, and I got in, I think, with 6 minutes to go, and we had a comfortable lead. So now I'm really living my dream. I'm on the court, and in 6 minutes, I managed to have 4 fouls, 2 turnovers. I was on my rear end more than I was on my feet. I was all over the place. In fact, I don't know if I scored any points.
You scored 2 points.
Wow, I don't remember that. All I remember is running around.
Off of 2 free throws.
Okay. Hey, that was pretty good, because all I remember is the excitement that I felt, and I was running all over the court, and I was not a player that ever fouled out of the game, and that was the only time I ever had 4 fouls. But the next night I was over at Bud Gronk's house, and his mom was telling me, Lonnie, you were on your crap more you were on your feet, and and I just kind of laughed. And then the following, do we have time to go on for the story?
Yeah.
The following week, it was on a Monday, and Steve Schumacher, his older brother, was playing in a City League basketball game, and so Leon Leslie, Steve Schumacher, Bud Braun, and myself went to Sheridan Park to watch each brother play. And so we were sitting in these chairs, and it was before waiting for the other game to get done, and Dave was sitting there. And we got talking about the game. That North Kitsap game was on a Friday night, so it's the following Monday. And Dave leans over in the chair, and he's looking down at me because I was sitting at the end, and he says, "Folger, I think your brainwaves go like this." And he puts his finger up and down. Of course, everybody's laughing and stuff. And I go along and I laugh too, because I thought to myself, you're right. That's the way my brain waves were working. I don't know that they worked like that the whole time, but he was absolutely right. So I laughed at myself just as they were laughing at me. And I'll never forget that, because later on I'll tell you a story of what happened a year later, the first game of my senior year. But I remember that game.
No, as a coach, it takes a while for a player to get the headlights out of the deer out of the headlights out of them and get comfortable on the floor. And so no, I can. No, I can very well. So you guys win the North Kitsap game 58-47. So now you guys who are starting on a 2-0, where East on the other side they're like 0-3. But I understand that was pretty common for less Easthorne teams to have kind of a slow start. I heard Rick Walker talking about that one day. Oh, like typical, there's the East starting out, and then once they seemed to get their mojo going, that they would come on and win regularly. So, but then you guys go to Stadium.
Okay.
And you don't play. You remember going to Stadium the first time? You end up losing 46-44. So you guys are playing. You're playing the Capital League teams tight, but you just can't seem to beat them.
Right.
I mean, did the Capital League teams play a different type of basketball game?
They were more creative. Ran a lot. Run, creative. They were. I think they had overall or collectively better athletes than what we had.
Is it just because Tacoma was a bigger town?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
By this time, we're starting to see statistically that Schumacher has stepped up and seems to be the primary, the leading scorer. I'm not saying the primary player. That's not the right word, but was that the case? I mean, did Schumacher? Well, 'cause I know the second game after that Mount Tahoma game, he had a bruised shoulder, so he didn't play very much up at Port Angeles. But it seems like now that the Schumacher is the top player on the team. Did that continue all season?
Yes.
Okay. So what was Schumacher's gift, should I say?
Good ball handler, forward. It's kind of a guard forward, but as I think of him, because we played together at OC later, but had a nice mid-range game and could hit from the outside and wasn't afraid to mix it up, rebounding, and good overall solid player.
Excuse me, I was looking. Okay, I was looking for some. Okay, so now actually get to mix up my questions. I had a question for you. It's interesting. That was key.
I'm glad to know I scored 2 points against North Kitsap because I remember 10 points I scored my junior year, so now I'm up to 12.
Yeah. So, well, here's my question for you, and it's kind of interesting. That North Kitsap, you guys win 58-47. Danny Shep, this is just an anecdote from Danny. I know you were good friends with Leon, but Danny says, yeah, I remember that game because Leon got hypnotized.
It wasn't that game.
Okay.
It was the game against North Kitsap at North.
Right, that's what I meant.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I think he scored 20 points.
He had, actually, he had 11 that night.
Oh, I could have sworn it was.
No.
Great game, though. It was his best game ever. And you have to know Leon. Leon, he was excitable. Probably kind of thought too. You know how sometimes people can think too much,
right?
Rather than just react and so on and so forth. But I remember one time he telling me, Lonny, we got to do isometrics. It's all about isometrics, and isometrics was kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
So he said, well, what are you talking about, Leon? He says, well, you stand in a doorway and you press out like that, and you do this, so on and so forth. But anyway, so Leon has this great game. I thought he scored more, but nevertheless, it was somebody watching it could just tell. It was about, I don't know if it was that was a Friday night game. It could have been the next night, but I want to say it was 2 or 3 days later. And he told me, he said, Lonny, I want to tell you something. I said, okay. Yeah, what do you want to tell me? He said, I was hypnotized. It didn't surprise me. That was Leon.
Okay.
He would do anything. Okay, and it did not surprise me. I said, well, was it right before the game? And no, it was like 5 days before that, where, how
right.
Hypnotism works. But he was so, he wanted to. I'm surprised that he told anybody else. But yeah, he shared that with.
So here's my question for them leading up to: did Coach Smith know about that?
I don't know.
Okay, because
he might. On one hand, he might have. I won't say that definitively that he didn't know. Now, wouldn't surprise. I don't know.
Well, because here's what I'm leading up to. The question is that, and also prior to the North Kitsap game, when you guys were at Port Angeles, Bud didn't play varsity. He was out. He was on the JV playing, and then he's back up when he come back to play North. He's back up on the varsity roster, and then when you guys go to play Stadium,
and he starts.
He starts. Leslie doesn't start, and Lambert
started.
That makes no sense.
Right.
Starts.
I have.
So my question was there stuff going on with the team? I mean, it doesn't. This indicates to me as a basketball coach that either there's things that the players aren't quite doing what the head coach wants, or the head coach is experimenting with the lineup.
Yeah, before you telling me that, I didn't know that or realize that until I had read that on the website about Lambert starting and Bud Braun starting. If you would have told me that the starting lineup, except for the 2 games I started later in the season, if you told me that it wasn't Leon Leslie, Les Dix, Fred Cagle, Steve Schumacher, and J.D. Tamaris, if I didn't see it in writing, I wouldn't believe you, because that's what I remember. Okay, so when I saw that, it was kind of a, geez, I don't remember that. So I don't know if he was because going into the season, and there was an incident, I told you about this at the phone when at Coonset, and then we were practice after we messed up the drills and stuff, and I'd hit 3 in a row from the outside, and he yelled at me, quit shooting, Folger, and I had thought, well, seniors plus Dan for starting, and he didn't want to have to choose between a junior and a senior. But then when I saw that, I thought, geez, I don't remember that at all. So I don't know if he was just experimenting or exactly what.
Okay, no, it was just
what
a
was
question.
going on.
So what was West rivalry like with North Kitsap?
With North Kitsap.
The reason I ask because there's 3 technical fouls in the game, and as the writer puts it, it was not a pretty basketball game. Just it sounds like it was very physical. Fred gets a technical early in the game for going to the refs and asking him why one of the other players, he was questioning, But then Les gets in sounds like a skirmish on the floor with one of the other North Kitsap players, and the refs hit both the players with technical fouls and kick him out of the game. So, was there bad blood with North Kitsap?
Not that I recall. North Kitsap always had their fair share of bigger guys. Go back through the year, in that year, a junior, Rick Roberts, who also played football, about the size of Fred Cagle and stuff. You go back earlier in years with North Kitsap, there was Dick Dahlstrom, a football player and played football in college and stuff. It's kind of a Scandinavian town, so on and so forth. So they played a little more, as I recall, a little more of a rugged style, and so it could be that other than Fred Cagle, who would have been along the same lines, it could have just been that we were trying to hold our own, and that something happened and it got a little bit.
Well, I've been a former ref. I understand how those games go. I'm just asking because
Yeah.
they come up and it's not typical.
Yeah.
The players get ejected. Dick's and the North Kitsap player both get ejected out of the game.
Yeah.
So it's that's fine. So, well, the last question for today, and let's go back to the South Kitsap game. This is your guys' last game prior to the Christmas break. You guys, South Kitsap comes to West, and you guys have a pretty you beat them by 8, 46-38. So let's see. This looks like everybody played in the game. Where's your name? You get playing time. You don't score any points.
Oh, okay. So I don't get to add that to my.
No, you don't get to add that to your.
Yeah.
So basically, by the time the Christmas break, had the team kind of gotten used to Coach Smith? Had the team's personality developed? Because every basketball team has its own personality.
Right. I would say yes.
Because it seems by that time, just after the stadium game, what becomes the regular lineup, he's back to it now.
Okay.
Tamaris.
Okay.
No, excuse me, that's the E. Sorry, let me get to the right. I got some. As I learned, you can't tell the West story without telling the East story right next to it. So this was really about West when I started this project, but then I realized you can't tell one without telling the other. So back to it again. He goes back to really where we started the season. Schumacher's now back at a forward.
Okay.
Where he for a couple games he'd been playing guard. Dick's at forward. Shepard playing center. Leslie and Stockton. So
Okay.
That's what the. Hey, tell me real quickly. Hey, tell me about Jim.
Stockton?
Yeah, because Danny says that he was way ahead of everybody else, but in skill wise, but he didn't get a lot of playing time, especially as the season went along.
Yeah. Jim and I known one another since we were kids, and our moms knew one another. Jim was an outstanding athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Quick feet, run, quick hands, had jitterbug moves. Outstanding athlete. I love playing with him, and I love competing against him. Jim was his own worst enemy.
How's that?
When he made a mistake, he was so hard on himself, and it was just like that. And that was his biggest downfall.
Because Danny says he didn't play your guys' senior year. He didn't play in '63 and '64.
He started out, and he did at first, and he got kicked off the team with someone else, and Jim used to smoke.
Right.
Oh, you knew that.
Yeah. No. And that's what Danny said. Danny said that his memory was that's why he didn't play. I mean, he said they wouldn't let him play, and he had come to the conclusion because he smoked.
Yeah. Well, because I remember Mr. Smith told me that he was going to cut Jim before, and then he did, but he gave me a.
Was it because of smoking?
Yeah.
Because Danny
and probably too. I think Jim had some other personal problems going on. I don't know what they were.
Yeah, Danny said he didn't have an easy childhood.
No, his mom and dad. My mom and dad were divorced too, so we had a lot in common. But yeah, he lived with his mom and his sister, who was 2 years older.
And rumor has it she was an alcoholic.
Probably so.
Okay, I mean it's not them.
Yeah. When we were talking a couple of years ago, and Jim said we had the best moms, didn't we? And we did. My mom was a night bartender, a single mom from the time I was 12, that raised my two sisters and I. But with Jim, where he lived down there in lower Easter Bay Drive, and down the basement had a ping pong table, and we had some great games. I was a defensive player. Jim was the offensive player, and quick hands, and made me a better ping pong player just playing defense. And then across the street, I think it was Mr. Potter's field or something like that, and that's where we had baseball games and stuff. But like I said, he could have started in football, basketball, baseball. He ended up, he worked for the Washington State Ferries for 30 years before he retired, but he played fast pitch and was a great fast pitch player, second baseman. And he was fun to watch playing baseball, any sport, just because, like I said, he was a jitterbug and was just so quick.
Mm-hmm.
Quick hands playing basketball, quick hands fielding, and so on and so forth. But his biggest downfall was he'd get down on himself, and it was just like that. This was our junior year, and I can't remember what game it was, but and it was right in front of the bench, and I think it was like in the third quarter, and he's got the ball, he's dribbling, and he's converged upon by three players, and he just panicked, and he threw the ball up in the air. And it was so funny when it wasn't funny, sorry for him, but it was so funny when it happened. I remember us sitting on the bench, and we just started laughing. But I think that was his downfall. When that happened, I think then he began going down the ladder.
Yeah, no, because Danny said his playing time started to diminish as the season went along, and by the end of the season he wasn't playing much.
Yeah.
But Danny also theorizes that if he had been on the 63-64 team, you guys could have very easily won state. That's Danny's opinion.
Yeah. I tell you who else got kicked off the team. There were three guys that got kicked off after the season started. There was Stockton, Dick Wright, and then Johnny Jackson halfway through that season. Johnny and we were in the sixth grade together. Great guy. He got a PhD and was the principal of Franklin High School or somewhere like that. But anyway, and he got caught stealing something.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Semantic went to juvenile court and helped get him, but he got kicked off the team. If we would have had Stockton and if we would have had Johnny Jackson, even with what we had, we should have beat Olympia, and I'm not so sure that we couldn't have beat Hudson's Bay the next night. And they just barely got by Bothell 39-37.
Right.
And then we lost by. We led that game against Olympia until the last 58 seconds. We were ahead by 9.
And that's what Danny said.
Yes, we were ahead by 9, and Eddie Tobacco went in for a lay-in, missed it. They threw the ball the length of the court, and a lay-in at the buzzer. So instead of leading by 11, we led by 7. And we had them on the run that first half. Okay, so that wasn't so bad. But, you know, it happened, but then it was halftime. Here's where the mistake was made. But I don't fault Mr. Smith. I fault us. Everybody will fault Mr. Smith on this. We went into a stall beginning the second half. Okay, if we would have played the third quarter, if we would have been allowed to, and then gone into the stall in the fourth quarter, we would have won. I'm not so sure even if we hadn't gone in the stall, we would have won, because that was kind of our MO, the second half of our season that year. We only lost 2 or 3 games by like 18, 19 points. We beat Lincoln at Lincoln by 10, and we beat Stadium by 20, and the other games were like 9 points and 6 points against Mount Tahoma.
Yeah, you guys are close.
Yeah, we weren't out of the games.